he has antique gynecological equipment and, that he collects, and he had some farting cockroaches, which I guess are some type of special cockroach that fart to scare away other animals. And he also told me that he had tried to buy a mummy, but was outbid. And, so I was like, okay, you're hired. So it was a real weird group, and we ended up kind of growing up together.
So what happened next? You didn't write the landscape remake.
Yeah.
The blog. How did Requiem come along?
Well, when when I was finishing up Pi, I was writing a genre film, which eventually got made. But I was writing because I never thought that I would be able to make what I wanted to make next. So I was kind of writing just a horror film. And but with the success of Pi, I had been a huge fan of Secret Selfie Juniors for a very long time, and I tried to put it together, and it was really, really hard. I just remember everyone saying, "Oh, what do you want to do next?" and sending them the book, and people just not returning, not even calling me back, saying no. It was just all pass. But I loved the book, and I just I was naive enough to try and make it.
Would it embarrass you if we showed a clip from it? Maybe do
I
that.
actually saw it recently, so I already was embarrassed.
Well, I quite like the clip we're going to show again is quite early on, and it shows the beginning of the riot. And I quite like to also talk about working with her and that side of the story, because a lot of people focus on drugs, and I'm also very interested in her story and the parallels between what the younger generation did and what she was doing with their own. If we could show that, that would be great. They're all trying so hard, aren't they?
They're all what?
Trying so hard.
Yeah. That's less embarrassing.
My favourite scene is actually one that goes tandem with that, when he realises that she's an addict.
His mom.
Yeah, and the pain that a son feels at seeing his mother in that predicament, perhaps not recognising it in himself. It's a very emotional moment, set against all that wizardry, that visual wizardry. I don't know whether it was an important moment for you, or...
That's the reason I made the film, actually, was that scene. It's actually a 10-minute long scene in I guess a 90 or 100-minute long film, so it's like a tenth of the film. Most people don't talk about it, but for me it was the reason I made it. Because when I read the book, that was when I knew I was going to make it. That I was going to try and make it. And it just was so poignant, and just messed up. And it's actually, there's a tiny bit of score, but really nothing, and there's, the camera barely moves. There's one big move in the center where we go from one side of the line to the other side of the line, and that was supposed to be, we're on the light side of the line when things are good, and kind of, when Harry realizes what's going on, we switch to the darker side of the line. The line being all the non-filmmaker people is usually when you shoot a scene, the camera's on one side, and so people understand where people are sitting, and so it's a little unorthodox across it. I guess not so much anymore, especially after seeing Antichrist today, where he just doesn't care about the line. But it was a very dramatic scene that meant so much to me when I read the book. So I just wanted to show it the right respect. And then when we were on set and we saw what Ellen did, it was, I remember Maddie saying he didn't know, he couldn't tell if he was framing it correctly, and because he had fogged up the eyepiece from crying.
Wow.
Which is always a good sign when the cameraman cries. But it actually turns out that scene, Ellen is actually, in fact, a bit soulish, meaning she's a little bit out of focus. She's just on the edge of it, which ended up being this whole big dramatic thing because, you know, an actor gives you their heart and then suddenly you have to tell them that it's soft. We actually went back and tried to reshoot it, and we just never got the emotion back. So the shot that's in the film is actually a little soft. It works.
When you cast someone like that, do you just make an offer?
Yeah, with someone like Ellen, you do. But it was a very hard role to fill. You know, it seems so obvious with Ellen right now, but she, like all my choices in all my films, was not my first choice. But I'm so happy it ended up there. But it was a long road to get there. And yeah, I offered it to her, and her side of the story, if I remember correctly, was she read it and she said, "They want me to do that, and for no money." And but then I guess we met and we talked, and she got to see Pi, and she got an understanding of what I was trying to do. And, you know, for me, it was my friend, my friend from a Hollywood friend told me when he read the script that I should cut out the mother side of the story and just do. No, it wasn't him. But I was going to tell him who it was. It was Mark, Jim. Anyway. There was a mutual friend of someone here. So anyway, he told me I should cut out the old lady and just make it about the kids. And for me, the whole reason to make the film was about the old lady. I didn't really care about the kids' side story because we had seen that side of the story, but what made it so interesting was the counterpoint to the kids, and that her addiction was, you know, not really the addiction to the pills, it was the addiction to the dream. So that was, you know, that whole side story was why I made the film.
Was collaborating with Selby interesting, good experience?
It was great. I mean, we had co-writing credit, but how that happened was he had written a script back in '78 when the book first came out, and but then he lost the script and it was lost. And I went off and sat in my parents' basement for 4 or 5 months and kind of wrote about 70-80% of the script, and then his mother passed away, and he was cleaning out his mother's basement and found his old draft, and he sent it to me, and basically the scripts were almost identical.
No.
So I kind of combined them, infused them, and took some things he had done. And then there were a few, whenever you turn a novel into a screenplay, you always cut out, you have to cut out a lot, but sometimes when you cut out something, you need a bridge to reconnect. If you've taken out 20, 30 pages, you need one scene. So I got to write a few things up, and then the next end of the collaboration was he came to set for a week or so, and he came during the most intense scenes towards the end. He's actually in the film. He's the prison guard screaming at Marlon Wayans to mix the mashed potatoes, and that was, you know, the line producer on the day said, "Hey, why don't we put Selby in this film?" And it was great. But he was there when Ellen was being electrocuted, and he was able to read her the pages from the novel right before we did a take. So everyone would quiet down, he read it, and then we rolled cameras and did a performance, which was kind of nice.
Great that your two scripts bore such similarity, and I was going to ask you, I've never read one of your screenplays before it's been made. How do they read? What
Usually my screenplays suck, because I assume a lot, like I'm thinking visually what may be happening in there, and then I don't take the time to write them. So for me, they're very much blueprints often. So that's the reality.
And with something like the Fountain, which is obviously a totally different kind of adventure, did that need to be more thought out? When did the comic companion come with it?
Oh yeah. Well, the graphic novel was it was very long and arduous film to make. It took about 5, 6 years to make. Actually, that script came out pretty well because we spent so much time on it, and so we had to make it very clear because we had to, you know, convince people first. First, we had $80 million behind it. Then we eventually made it for $35 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but somehow it's not.